Everyone, so happy you could join us. I'm thrilled to have my dear friend Krista Wells here with me today. She's a military spouse career coach and published author. She actually has a new book coming out on March 12th that is available for pre-order. She's going to tell us a little bit more about that later. But for now, welcome, Krista.
Thank you for having me. I always love being a part of National Military Spouse Network. So I'm super grateful to be here.
And we're really thrilled to have you here because when we chatted during the summit, when you did that session about establishing side hustles, and I know we had you do an article about it for the digital magazine before, it is so relevant because as you and I were discussing in the green room ahead of time, a lot of military spouses are actually developing side hustles. Like even if they have a full-time day job, they have a separate side hustle where they're kind of working their passions. So I think this is really timely and I'm excited to hear about it, but I'm also excited for military spouses to hear a little bit about your career trajectory because I'm sure there are a lot of spouses out there who aren't sure what they want to do when they grow up. And every time I talk to you, I just feel like I learn a little bit something new. I learn something new every single time, and I always learn a little something with every engagement we have. And one of the earliest things I remember learning from you is, when people don't know what they want to do, you kind of laughed when I said that because you're like, really? Like, look on your bookshelf. What's on your bookshelf? Read me 12 books that you can see from your bookshelf, and I can pretty much tell you what you want to do. So, can you tell us a little bit about that concept?
Yes, I still ask that question after 20 years of career coaching, but people often are too close to their interests. So when I say, what's on your bookshelf, or where do you go in the bookstore when you end up going to the bookstore? I listen and they'll tell me things and then they'll think it's so profound. Like they'll say, I get, cooking, baking, how to eat, nutrition, all these books. And I said, well, maybe you're interested in baking nutritious food. And they'll be like, oh my gosh, you're so smart. And it's just that we're a little bit too close to our interests. And in addition to the bookstore, you can think about conversations that you get lost in, what you're scrolling on social media, and what YouTube things you're like looking up, conversations that you have, or you can ask friends. Oftentimes friends around you will notice your interests before you notice them yourselves. So you'll say to your friends, what do you see on my bookshelves? What do you see that I'm interested in? And other people can see things that you think like I had a lot of books on organizing, and I thought everybody's interested in organizing their office or organizing their bedroom, or this organizing and home design and things like that. And what you'll find is that it's usually more unique to yourself than you give yourself credit for.
Right.
So
Because,
yes,
yeah, we're looking at it and we're doing it. So we're like, oh, like you said, everybody's doing
yeah,
that.
everybody loves cooking. Like I know you love to cook. So you'll be saying, well, everybody gets cookbooks and does all this cooking. And it's like, oh, maybe that, and it doesn't mean that you necessarily will take your interest or even your skill. So just like an interest that you have or a skill that you have, sometimes you're not motivated to use that interest or motivated to use that skill. So you might say, but I love cooking, but I don't want to be a cook. Or like I tell my clients, I'm really good at cleaning my house, but I don't want to be a house cleaner. So you have to take it a little bit further and think about what are the skills that maybe you're not even good at, but you're motivated to get better at. Like I've always enjoyed public speaking. I wasn't really good at it, but I was motivated to go to Toastmasters to get better at it. So it's like kind of skills that we want to develop just as much as the natural interests and skills that we have. And then when you combine those, what's on your bookshelf, with the skills you're motivated to use with your values, and the three come together, that's when you come up with creative new ideas for careers.
I
And
love it.
maybe part of your career, which I know, is networking and socializing and bringing people together around food, because we were just together at the White House eating and having a good time. So that might be your piece of that comes into your business. The networking is more than being a cook.
I think it's like you said, it's about the bringing people together around like food and drink and just like travel and just having that outlet because it's so interesting that nothing breaks down barriers faster than when you can find the commonality, and that is people's love of, family, friends, and together time. And it's just, I think that's where it helps. It helps in my business, and it is just fun. But you're absolutely right. But I want to talk about you a little bit. You've owned your own. This is why we love you, because you are definitely the spouse coach. You cannot help yourself because every time we get together, you're like, let me tell you this. But I want people to know about you because you have owned your own business for 20 years now, over 20 years now. And you started way before all these resources for military spouse entrepreneurs were even conceived, right? So with that benefit of, having been here a little bit longer than everybody else in the, entrepreneurial space, how has the ecosystem changed for our military spouse entrepreneurs? Is it really different from what it was when you started?
Yeah, I think there's just as many differences as similarities. I mean, when I started, I had no website for 3 years. I posted a rip-off sign at a military base that said, "Come and I'll help you with your resume." I said just something like, I had an ad, "Does your resume look like Swiss cheese? Come and like I'll help you like tie it all together." And I had them break up into groups on the military base and talk about their values, their skills, their interests, and come up with ideas of new careers. So things were really different back then. I mean, we maybe had a list of military spouse friendly employers, but it was in a pre-COVID world. There wasn't a whole lot of telecommuting. There wasn't a lot of jobs on Zoom. There wasn't as many of the resources that I want to credit National Military Spouse Network for making some of those route changes in policy. Like when I was first started as a military coach, people that worked in HR were looking up, is in this state, is military spouse even in a protected class? And these were all new things. And at the time, I had clients that were lawyers, and if they moved, their law degree wasn't relevant in another state. I know a lot of those laws have changed. So there's been some progress with reciprocity with certain credentialing and degrees and things like that. But we still have so much work to do, and
Sure.
there's still a huge amount of underemployment. And I think that some of the buzz of the telecommuting type of jobs has died down a little bit. There's many companies around here in Hartford. I serve military spouses in New London and in Hartford. And some of the big insurance companies that were letting everyone work from home now want people in 3 days a week. So it's kind of like a little bit, we've kind of opened our eyes to more accessibility to work, but I think there's still an issue with underemployment. And with military spouses, it's not, the only barrier isn't just geographically like where you are. Sometimes have other things going on that are like that undercurrent of stress, taking care of children. There's a million other things that are getting in the way and creating the underemployment. So I feel like we've made a lot of progress. And obviously the best solutions are those policy changes.
Right.
But there's still plenty of work to do.
Absolutely. There's tons of work to do, but I mean, like, as you were mentioning, there are some really great resources that exist now that didn't exist when we were starting out in this space, in the spouse employment space. And what are some of the best resources, in your opinion, that military spouse entrepreneurs should be aware of?
So I think that it's important for a military spouse entrepreneur to find resources that are particular for their industry. And I feel like it's twofold. They should find resources for working on their business and then resources for in their business. So whatever their business is, there's probably resources within that umbrella. And a really good place to start is some of the professional organizations within each industry. And I can help people to find those. So like if you're a librarian, or if you're in human resources, or if you're a life coach, or if you're a psychologist, there's resources within each of those umbrellas where I think it's less is more, like to join one professional organization and really get engaged and involved, to me is the best bet. And then there's what we sometimes forget is the resources for on your business. So like, do you have the right business loan? Are you reaching out to an organization that I really like is SCORE? And in our community here in Hartford, Connecticut, there's mentors that were entrepreneurs and are now supporting other entrepreneurs. And they help me with like, I just reached out to they offer free classes.
Yep.
I just took one of the classes, and it was on some of the changes in the laws with the LLC. And so I want to make sure that my LLC paperwork is up to date as an entrepreneur. I want to make sure that there's a new, they just sent me what it was, but like there's a new FinCon or something that you have to register your business for. So those are the kind of things where an organization like SCORE or Small Business Association, you can get information on like the actual running of your business versus the particulars within your business. And then depending on the different business, there are military spouse entrepreneur grants. There's the My CAA, that you can get, I think, up to $6,000 of funding if you're trying to get trained in a particular trade. So I know someone had used it to become certified as a radiologist. She used it to pay for part of that. So there's different resources out there, but I think it's really important to look into them and capitalize on some of those resources. Like sometimes people don't realize that their spouse's GI Bill that hasn't been used, like they can use it. Or like you told me to look into the Yellow Ribbon program. I have 4 kids going to college. So like having those conversations and making those calls and getting the information. And sometimes if it's a no, it leads you in a different direction. And you can always ask people. Like I went to Thriller Fest, which was a conference for thriller writers. And I said, do you have a military spouse discount or a military discount? And they didn't, but they created one. So like sometimes you can work with organizations and you don't always have to go to the full 5-day conference or the full professional organization. Sometimes you can volunteer to work at a professional organization, or my co-author and I went to 1 day of a 3-day expensive conference, and we kind of went in and out and didn't spend the money on the hotel and the whole 3 days. So you can be creative and think about how can I capitalize on some of these resources. I know a lot of people that overjoin professional organizations or overjoin even like funding in areas to get help, and then they end up getting overwhelmed rather than being able to use the resources that are provided. I made that mistake when I was first a life coach. I kind of joined career coaching and coaching, International Coaching Federation and Coachville and all these things. And then I wasn't really utilizing the services. So I think it's important to like less is more, just join like Toastmasters and SCORE and then get involved, or join National Military Spouse Network. And like one thing, like that might be your military spouse network, and then you want to do an industry networking. Like if you're a nurse, you want to do something professional organization. But when you overjoin too many, I feel like you're not really utilizing them. It's better to join National Military Spouse Network and really use the network than to join 4 and not go to anything.
No, I love it. And I mean, that's a really, really great tip, because you're right. We have an embarrassment of riches, because aside from the resources that are available specifically to military spouses, we also have resources that are available to everyone, right? Like the Small Business Administration and SCORE, which are great resources. And you're absolutely right. Like you should do the research, find the resources, and then figure out which one works better for you. And then the next year, maybe you want to join different ones and like try those.
Right.
But that's
Yeah.
great.
And I've done that. Like I've joined Chamber for a year, or I've done BNI, Business Networking International, for a year. But if I'm not using it, or if I have little kids and I'm not going to 7:30 meetings because that doesn't work for me, it's better to hop on Sue's National Military Spouse Network Zoom meeting, around the water tank, water cooler class or whatever. It's better to do that because getting up at 7:30 is not working for your family, especially if your spouse is deployed and you have little kids. It's better to go on a National Military Spouse Network Zoom and be on that call every month than to like be frazzled and going to a BNI meeting and it doesn't work for your lifestyle at that moment.
I love it. And I'll pay, I'm going to send you your commission as soon as this is over. But
No, but
like,
it's true. I mean, it works much better to be on a Zoom with other military spouses that get it than to be at a BNI where people might not get it.
Yeah, and it's a time saver for sure.
I'm not bashing BNI. It has its place, but
Definitely
sometimes it's the season.
No, you're right, because it
season.
depends on, like you were saying, whatever works for you. But like every time I connect with you, you're like crazy busy. So I know that when we last talked, and this not last talk, but when we spoke a couple years ago, your speaking was going off the rails. Like you were doing like speaking to big groups and such. And then I turned around and you were writing thriller novels. I'm like, holy cow, where does she find time to do this? Because you are coaching, you have kids. And then I figured out, and then like you told me that you were writing these novels, and not only are you writing the novel, but you're co-authoring with somebody. And I know from experience, because when we wrote our book, I was co-authoring it with somebody else as well. And like you have to take the whole book and put it into one voice. So like Krista, you're kind of like, let me show me the hardest way to do it, and that's what I'm going to do. So now you're raising 4 kids who are going to college. You are a full-time career coach, and now you're also a co-author, and you have a second book coming out. That is one heck of a side gig. How did you, like, first of all, how did you start figuring out that you, I mean, because I know you've written nonfiction. I've read your
Yeah.
nonfiction books for spouse employment, but how did you even think that you, how did you even know that you wanted to write fiction? And how did you, I know, for lack of a better word, how did you lean into that? And really, how did you find the time?
I think I used some of the advice that I give my clients, and I followed my intuitive to-do list rather than my should to-do list. So for a long time, I had a lot of things on my list of I should post a blog once a week. I should host a group of military spouses on a Zoom. I should do this. I should do that. And sometimes the shoulds didn't happen. But what I found was with the fiction book, um, I met my co-author in the hairdresser, and we got talking, and she was writing beauty blogs, beauty articles for Pop Sugar and Martha Stewart Wedding and things like that. And I was writing military spouse empowerment pieces. And we were talking about our writing schedules and getting into magazines. And I was helping her to pitch to another magazine. And we got talking, and then we ended up supporting each other with our writing through. I mean, we're in the same community. We ended up becoming friends, and our kids ended up playing baseball on the same team. We joke around that we wrote a lot of the book on the side of the baseball field because baseball's a lot of hours. But
Yeah.
what happened was she was working on, I've always loved research. I think it's a big part of being a life coach. And when a client is going through something, I am just always looking at the next research. Right now, I'm taking a class on becoming a trauma informed coach. I love all the research side of it. Like, so I will always be reading self help and research articles. If you look at what's on my bookshelf, it's self help and trauma and research and things like that. So my friend, started to write this fiction book, and I was helping her with the research piece of it. I was helping her with explaining about our first book is an infertility murder. So I was explaining to her the research side of infertility, and she kept coming to me and asking for research. And I said, oh no, the character would do this and they would do this. And she said, can you just write it?
Oh, awesome.
And I said, oh no, I don't have time. I'm busy. I have 4 kids. I have a blog that I'm supposed to be working on that I'm not. And I have a teleclass I'm supposed to give, and I have clients to see. And she's like, well, just try it and see. And then I found myself at night and on the weekends and while I was watching baseball in my phone, like writing notes, and like just like it was never on my to-do list. Like, you have to write a fiction book. It was like, oh, well, this would be fun. And I found myself just doing it. So then after about a month or two, I think it took us about 2 months to write the first draft. I kind of went to her and I said, how do we just write a book? Now, first of all, we each only wrote half a book.
Right.
But I said, how do we do that? And she's like, well, have you been on Instagram scrolling in the last month? Have you been on TikTok? I said, no, I haven't binge watched Netflix. I've just been coming home and having an idea and writing for a couple months. I mean, not forever. Now I'm back to binge watching Netflix. But so for a couple months, I used what I call now pockets of time. Normally, I would drop a kid an activity, and I would, instead of waiting outside for an hour, I would run to Target and get that one errand done and then come back. And then that racing around that a lot of mothers do with, like, I have 3 kids in high school right now. So I'm from sport to activity to sport. And during that running around time, I would just stay. So if, like, my kid had an hour appointment during this 2 months, and I didn't know this until the 2 months were over and I looked back. Like, it's not like I knew to
Yeah.
create pockets of time. But I said, oh, you know what? We don't really need the whatever from Target. I'm going to sit here and I would find myself scrolling. This is kind of circles back to our first question. I would find myself scrolling. How many words are in a thriller book? Because I didn't know. Or how to write a thriller book, or a video on how to pitch an agent. I said, oh, we have this great book idea, but how do you get it out into the world? Oh, you need an agent. So I would sit there for the hour that they were in their class and I would write, how do you get an agent? And then it would say, download Query Tracker. And you download Query Tracker on your phone and you keep track of what agents you're querying. So you kind of learn as you go, but you're motivated by the intuitive pull to do the whatever the activity is. And so if I had put on my list, you have to write a book and spend Tuesday and Thursday from this hour to this hour, like working on it and getting it done in 2 months, I probably wouldn't have done it.
Right.
So I really just let my intuition drive that book. And then when it was finished, it was like, okay, now I know more for book 2. But I really didn't know anything going into it. And I think in a way that can be good and motivating because you don't know what you're getting into.
That's kind of cool because a lot of the spouses we've already spoken to, you guys are all saying some of the same things. And one of the threads that keeps coming up is you're all open for opportunities. Like when an opportunity strikes, you're not just automatically saying no. You said no initially, but then you're like, wait a minute. Yeah, I'm thinking about this and I'm doing it. So I might as well just go all in. And that seems to be a trend among all the spouses we've spoken to, which is they were open for something that they wouldn't have recognized necessarily as an opportunity because it wasn't on their trajectory. And then like Jen Barnhill said something really insightful. She's like, as soon as I let go of what I thought I should be doing, I realized that I had a lot of opportunities coming my way as soon as I was willing to let go of the path I thought I was going to have. So no, this is all really good stuff. But
yeah, and sometimes your life purpose changes from your initial vision.
Yeah. I mean, it'd be weird if it didn't, right? Because you change. So this is really great. And I want to kind of wrap all of this up into thinking about other military spouses who may be reading your highlight. I hope you've read her highlight so you know where Krista came from and where she is now. But then I think if they see it and go, I could totally do a side hustle. I have passions that are not, I don't get to live them because my job may be really far from my passion. So what are some final thoughts or tips that you would have for military spouses who may also be interested in developing a side hustle or starting their own business?
I think that myself and many, many clients always think, well, I'll do this when? Like, I'll do this when the kids graduate. Because what if I have a book tour and I can't leave them? Or I'll start this business when I have X amount of dollars in the bank. Or I'll leave my job when. And I think that you really have to follow that intuitive drive of if you're really passionate about something, not feeling like you have to wait and have like all your ducks in a row. Instead of kind of start it messy. I feel that I've often had myself and my most successful clients have often had a day job and a side hustle at the same time. And I find that works better than a fully diving in. So when I first started my business, I didn't have enough clients for the amount of income that I wanted. So I also taught college courses. So I knew I was going to get a certain amount of income. Then after 3 years of seeing clients, I finally said, okay, I had the rip papers at Panera, like hire Krista. But it was 3 years into it where I had a little bit of income from teaching college courses where I could invest. Back then you had to invest in making a website. Now I think people do it on their own in one day. But I had to take a little bit of the income from the one business and put it into the other business. Same thing with the writing in the beginning. So I would take I've grown my business over 20 years. So I have income from the coaching business. So I would take income from the coaching business and I would say, oh, you know what, before I try to get an agent and get this published professionally, I'm going to invest in an editor. So if you don't have any money and you're at home, it's really hard to just say, you know what, I want to give money to, like, I want to break into our savings and give money to an editor, or I want to go to a Thriller Fest conference, even for one day, even if you don't go all 3 days. I think it's like a $600 conference and I went to one day. So it's probably like in the 200 range. But if you don't have $200 from another income, I think it's harder to like dive in and try the new things. Whereas if you have a little bit of income, you can do, you can kind of borrow from one job to fund the, invest, I shouldn't say fund, invest in yourself for the side hustle. So I feel like people will think like I'm going to just try the side hustle, but you need a little bit of money and wiggle room to be able to like comfortably go to networking events, to be able
Yeah.
to go to a conference, to be able to join the professional organizations that sometimes cost money. So it's like maybe working part-time and then diving in slowly is going to make more sense. And it's not just from an economical point of view, it's busier people get more done. So when you're busy and you're working even part-time work, you'll say, okay, that 2 evenings a week, I'm going to devote to my side hustle. Versus if you have all the time in the world, sometimes you're not as focused.
Right. No, I absolutely feel that. And you're absolutely right. And that's exactly how I started NMSN was I funded it with my consulting and I had saved and everything. And so
Yeah. And you had an exit plan, and it was over a month's time that you knew this is my exit strategy. This is what I'm going to do. This is what I'm going to invest. And then I feel like there's still opportunity where you're doing both and you feel like, oh my gosh, I'm like in overwhelm because I'm trying to do both. I'm trying to do both. But I feel that even that sense of overwhelm, people tend to be a little bit more productive than when they just completely like dive into the new business, because it's not just the clients that I have that are starting a side hustle that have a part-time job are talking about their side hustle during the part-time job, and they're getting a lot of free marketing and exposure, and that getting that information out there that they wouldn't if they were just home doing it.
yeah, and you can also use your full-time or part-time job to get you more experience. That'll make your side hustle and your entrepreneurial engagement stuff better, like to gain the skill. So yeah, you're right. I had an exit strategy that was actually spread out over 2 years and it only lasted 18 months, but at least I had a plan. And you're absolutely right. Thank you for reminding me of that. But I mean, my big takeaway for all you guys from what I'm hearing from Krista is that, side hustle, you might just want to keep your full-time job for a little while, part-time job, your 9 to 5, and do both for a while until it's feasible for you to really lean into fully your side hustle. The other one is use pockets of time.
Mm-hmm.
And then what would the big third one be?
Well, I think it's that following that intuitive to-do list, like not even once you are in your side hustle. I feel like think about it as like, how do I want to design my day? What are the tasks that I really enjoy doing? And I think when you follow, I think it's Joseph Campbell says, follow your bliss. I think people sense when you're doing the things that you love, you
Yeah.
attract business more easily than if you're forcing yourself to do things you're not comfortable with, then it makes the work harder. So I think it's about that leaning in and doing the, like think about within my business, and you want to obviously make money, but what is fun? Like, what do I enjoy doing within this business? It doesn't have to look exactly the way that you thought it would look when you were planning. Sometimes there's that, like, once you're doing it, you're learning it, you're learning what works for you and what you enjoy. And you just kind of follow that path once you're already in the business.
So it cracks me up because I knew this was going to happen. You're always looking out for other spouses. I knew you were going to make this interview about other spouses. So in the end, I want to bring it back to you and say, you're from the time that we met to now, you're in a different place than you were when we first met as as a full-time career coach, right? And
Yes.
so anything you would do differently, and what was any big surprises in your career path that you would caution your 20-year-old self and, like, hey, do more of this, do less of this, or, anything?
I'm trying to think. I guess when I very first started, I kind of had the idea that I could work from like 10 to 2 while my kids were in school, and that I would have all the other time free, and then I would be completely like with my kids. And what I learned was if I was going to charge for career coaching, that a lot of my clients worked. So my clients wanted to come in the evenings and the weekends. So I just said okay to that in the beginning for many years. I worked Saturday, I would say, Rick, here's the kids, 3 hours on Saturday. And it was like a break to go and work one-on-one with a
Yeah.
military spouse. So did that for many years. And then I got to the point where I was like looking around at other therapists and I was like, well, wait, they're working 10 to 2, like my dream. Like, how are they doing that? And so it was very slow process, but I started saying, like, when a client said, can you come Thursday night? I would say, oh no, I only have Friday at 10 available while all 4 of my kids are in school. And I slowly started becoming more confident and saying, like, no, these are the times that I have. And I don't work Saturdays and I don't work Thursday nights. I do still work an evening during the week. But like I started doing, like, being more confident with structuring the business how I wanted it rather than what was available to me. So I kind of slowly made that shift. And then even with military spouse speaking, I feel that I used to kind of say yes to a lot of pro bono things because I thought, oh, I need to get out there and meet spouses. And it doesn't matter if I get paid. I just want to be in front of them and helping and, reach the broader audience of military spouses. And then I had to say, no, I'm only going to do one pro bono talk per year. And then I would tell military bases that reached out to me in the past and would say, can you come do like a talk in the spring? I would say, yes, this is how much it is. And this is when I can come. And they would say, okay, because our spouse budget ends like in October and we want to have you give a speech next spring. So I said, okay, you can pay me now. I'll come next spring. And I started being more confident with that because I didn't have the energy. It wasn't really because I was more confident. I didn't have the energy with 3 little kids to like always leave and go do free things. I had to pay a babysitter. So I was like, no, I need to make this like more confident and more real and charge for my services a little bit more than I was. So I feel that if right in the beginning, you can have that confidence of your worth and what to charge and the hours that you want. People leave in the middle of the day to go get their nails done. They leave in the middle of the day to go to the dentist. They leave in the middle of I said, no, you can take an hour in the middle of the day and see your career coach. We're only meeting twice a month. Like, why should I leave my 4 kids home to have someone else give them a bath and put them to bed because it's convenient? So I started that was a slow process, but I think if I were going to do it again, I would say, no, work 10 to 2. If that's when your kids are in school and that's when you want to work, like build your business up to fit that model.
I love it. So you're saying people should value their time.
Yes. And their worth. I feel that I was coaching spouses to not be underemployed, but then giving a talk and not charging. So I was like, well, wait, how am I going to walk the talk? So I was like, no, you can, there's ways to charge and to feel like you're still, I think my old limiting belief was that if I charge money, like it was bad. And then my new limiting belief is like, no, it's wrong to not charge because then you're not able to serve as many people. And if you make more money, you can serve a broader audience more easily.
No, that's great. And I mean, that's a really great lesson for your 20-year-old self, because I think we're all guilty of that. And we just have to have the maturity a little bit of later and going, because I think we're afraid of losing clients or losing opportunities. And you're like, it doesn't matter. If you lose it, it wasn't worth it.
And I find that the more authentic that you are, the more that you actually attract clients more easily and you can do a lot less marketing. So back in the day, I would be like, okay, kids, be quiet. I have a client that called, and I would like lock myself in the half bath and I would be like, okay, yes, we can meet tomorrow at 7 p.m. All right. And then I hang up the phone and be like, now I need a babysitter. Oh my God. Everyone now I'll answer the phone. There's like Elmo's playing in the back seat. There's like kids yelling. And I'm like, okay, I only have next Thursday at 1:00. And it's true now.
Yeah.
So then it's like, all of a sudden they because you have less time and you value it more, you end up attracting the kind of client that doesn't care that there's a little noise in the background. Like, that's my life right now.
Yeah.
And so I'll answer the phone and get the call done with, and maybe it's less professional, but we end up working together and clicking because this person's also has a bunch of kids and they're trying to get a side hustle going. And they're like, okay, show me how you got a book published. And I'm like, okay, come next Tuesday and I'll teach you.
I love it. I love it.
So you become a little more real and you don't care if you're going to lose like the client because you don't sound perfect on the first call.
Yeah. You keep the people you're meant to attract.
Yeah. You're like, okay, I got another busy mom that gets it, that like, I'll say, hey, can we move our session 2 hours because my kids rained out, last game was supposed to be Wednesday and now it's Thursday. Like, can we move it? And I attract the client that's like, sure, I get it.
No, I love that. And that's a really, really, I know that we're like belaboring the point, but this is a really, really tough point to take because I mean, when you're starting out, you're really afraid, but from both of
Yeah.
us, benefit of hindsight is the right thing to do. But Krista, thank you so much for sharing your story with us. And if you have not read her highlight, please do so. And we would like to thank our friends at USAA for making these conversations possible. And also, if you have a story to tell, and I know you have a story to tell, please apply for your own highlight because we would love to chat with you and hear more about your career journey. And, like, I think we're hoping that we get such a diverse group of spouses doing so many different things that every military spouse recognizes themselves in one of these stories. So we hope we get to meet you. So please apply. And Krista, thank you so much for joining us. And go read her highlight, everyone. And I will see you here next week. Bye, guys.
Thank you so much.